Welcome guys, we are going to be starting a new series on Grand Tactician, the Civil War. So I've had a couple of tester runs just to get to grips with how the game plays, and it's a decent game, but I think the campaign could do with a bit of work to make it last a bit longer, because if you win quite a few battles at the beginning, you can win the game within 6 months, which is not ideal. So I can't guarantee how long this campaign is going to go on for, but we'll jump in and see how we get on. So I think what I'm going to do to make it interesting is try and do a non-infantry run. So it's just going to be cavalry and artillery. So I have tried this and it works really well without the order delays on. But with the order delays on, I've got a feeling it's going to be much harder, because you can't react. You can't just tell your men to do something and it happens immediately, which is obviously quite important for cavalry. But we're going to give it a go, so we're going to keep the order delays on and see how we get on. So I'm going to leave the feuds off, just because they can be a bit annoying. Take the auto manage off. So hardest difficulty and most aggressive. Now I like to go with this arms agents, because you get 50% increased weapons available. So obviously weapons are quite important. And I also like to go for this industrialization, because it means that we can get level 3 and 4 industrialization, which means that we can get the abolition of slavery later on in the campaign, which is obviously not historically realistic, being the Confederates, but that's what we're going for. So really, this going for King Cotton and industrialization is how you get the European intervention, which is really useful for dealing with the Union Navy. But I think that you could probably deal with the Union Navy with your own if you import ships. So that's what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and import ships and deal with it ourselves. Now I've never actually tried this random policies, so let's stick it on, see what happens. Looks like it's changed ours. Okay. That's interesting. AI opponents policies. Yeah, so it is the AI opponent policies. That's what I wanted to check. Okay, so there's quite a lot of housekeeping to be done at the beginning of the game, and it's going to be rather boring to watch. So basically just setting up all of the armies, and the main thing that's time consuming is setting up all of the officers. So you don't have to set up all the officers if you don't want. I don't think it makes too much difference, if I'm completely honest. But if you want to be perfect, then obviously you will want to set all the officers up. So
a house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure, permanently, half slave and half free. Abraham Lincoln, June 16, 1858. Chapter 1. A House Divided. The American Civil War. Thousands upon thousands of Americans turned against one another. Brothers killing brothers. The bloodiest war America would see. One engulfing the young nation in a maelstrom. tearing her apart. The Americans are no strangers to war. Declaring independence from their colonial masters, they fought long and hard for their freedom. To hold true that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But in this pursuit, where the Americans have a divine destiny to establish on earth the moral dignity and salvation of man, war would be ever present. Fulfilling the manifest destiny calls for expansion. While pioneers cross the vast frontier, driving west in search of land and gold, the Native Americans find themselves pushed across the continent, killing and being killed, confined in ever-narrowing territories. Novel technology and engineering feats hasten the expansion westward. Canals connect the East Coast and Midwest, followed by railroads and telegraph wires only decades later, revolutionizing the flow of merchandise, news, and people. But not all became Americans voluntarily. Men, owned by other men, labor in shackles to feed an insatiable need for cotton and textile mills, bringing marvelous riches to some and comfortless lives to others. These tired, poor, huddled masses yearn to breathe free too, but instead are subject to crack of the whip. Equality and happiness, even life, are not reserved for all. Coming to mid-19th century, the ever-expanding nation is on a brink of rupture. Only a political compromise of 1850 diffuses the tensions between northern free states and southern slave states, but this merely delays the march on the road to the inevitable. I do not expect the house to fall. But I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other. but the foundation of the wavering house would turn out to be beyond repair. Soon, blue flags bearing single stars would mark this union, commencing a war that would leave its mark in the Americans for centuries to come.
Whenever I play these war games or watch any history around war, it always reminds me about how lucky we are that we live in the era that we live in now. It must have been horrific beyond imagining. But anyway, the beginning of the game, there's pretty much nothing to do for the first, I don't know how long it is, couple of months or something. So you just fast forward in the beginning of the game and you're just setting your policies and stuff. So I always go for full on all of these subsidies because this is how you get all of your technology. So you basically, these things that you invest in here is what lets you buy these projects, and then it's these projects that give you all of the weapons and things like that. So you may as well go full in all of these. I've never actually got to a point where I've run out of money, but I've never really got that far into the game, so it would be nice if there was. I think there is a mod to make the campaign last longer, so that might be something that I'll look into. So yeah, we're going to go max on all of the subsidies, and the same with this policy page. The main branches, the diplomacy, military, anything with a red line, basically. So all of these red line techs, they just increase the speed at which you well, I think you still have to pay for it, so it increases the maximum amount that you can spend into these subsidies. So it will increase the cost of the subsidy, but it also obviously increases the speed at which you can unlock all of these technologies. So these middle red branch techs are the most important. Another thing is with the blue branch techs, the ones that branch off from the red branch, once you've unlocked them, you can keep them, basically. So, for example, if I unlock this Mexican intervention, which is a blue branch, and then I cancel this policy, it doesn't cancel the blue branch. So what you'll find, because you can only have maximum 12 policies, you have more than 12 red branches that you can take. The blue branches don't actually take any of these policy numbers, so you can take as many of the blue as you want, but because there isn't enough red branches to be able to take, there isn't enough policies to be able to take all the red branches, what you might want to do is go down to, say, number 4 on diplomacy to unlock this, and then cancel the diplomacy branches, so you can then invest into, say, funding, which will then let you take these blue branches on a different red branch. So yeah, just thought I'd point that out in case you're wondering why in the future I'm cancelling some of these. Right. So what we're going to want to do at the beginning is invest into military and diplomacy. So because this will increase the speed at which your projects are unlocked, the diplomacy is good for being able to get British artillery, which is fantastic. And if you're using infantry, which I'd assume most people would be, then the Prussian weapons are also fantastic as well. And then the other thing, what I'm going to be doing is using it to unlock these warships, because I want to see if I can compete in the naval battles. But I'll only be able to do that, I think, with these foreign ships. So that's what I'm going to be investing in. So I'll be going into the British artillery first, and then after that into the warships. And then with the military, because I'm going for cavalry and artillery, I'm going to want the artillery reform and the cavalry reform. I also want to go into this cavalry reform too, so my artillery is faster. It's pulled by horses. So they're the three things that I'm going to want to be able to compete on the battlefield properly. But obviously I'm going to need guns first, because the starting guns are terrible. So the first thing that I'm going to want in terms of guns is these repeating rifles. So that'll be the first thing I aim for, repeating rifles. Then I'll go for cavalry carbines. Then I'm either going to go into medium range carbines, or I'm going to go into artillery reform and cavalry reform too. But I think I might need the guns more. The British artillery will handle all of the cannon requirements, but I might need more rifles than just these repeating rifles. So I think I'll go repeating rifles, then cavalry reform, and then I'll go into the medium range carbines. So I think that's the way forward. But anyway, so I'm going to start off with, I think I'll start off with military, and then I'll go into diplomacy afterwards. So because the beginning of the game is just basically fast forwarding and enacting these policies, I'll probably just skip ahead. What will happen is the map will open up, and then I'll need to organise all of the armies, which is the part that's going to take an eternity to organise, which is the army part. So I'll probably jump back in once I've actually organised all the armies. Oh, then again, saying that, at the beginning, I'm not going to have the technology to organise my armies until I've got this cavalry reform. So I might just fast forward. I might not pause it quite yet until we get to the stage where I'm actually going to be setting up the armies. Okay, so another couple of things. You're going to want, not necessarily need, but you might want to invest into some of these construction companies. That will help reduce the amount of money that you're importing goods, basically, because you're producing them yourself. But it's very expensive to pay for these yourself, so what I usually do is use my industry and economy, or agriculture, sorry, to buy these companies rather than spending it on projects, because the projects themselves are not really important if you haven't got the companies required to take advantage of these policies or projects. So I'll go agriculture and industry into these, and then I'll obviously use the diplomacy and the military into the weapons. The other thing is having hospitals on the front line is really useful, and prison camps is also something that will be helpful. If you don't have prison camps, basically any prisoners that you take, you end up just giving them straight back. So if you want to reduce the amount of enemy manpower, then you're going to want to take prison camps. Now, because Personally, I find the game a little bit too easy. I'm not going to bother with the prison camps. But I might get some hospitals. I've never really found a need to get markets or news agency or the military academy. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I suppose it'll probably increase the stats, but I don't think it's worth it. You increase your stats relatively quickly in battle, so I think this is more for if you're not fighting, which obviously we will want to be doing. So anyway, let's carry on. So all we're doing at the moment is just waiting for these policies to finish. Okay, so we've got the first military policy. Now, we can't go into any more down here until the next chapter, so we're just going to jump into diplomacy. Now, you can go into these militia acts, so it doesn't tell you on here, but the militia acts will actually increase the amount of available volunteers. So if you don't invest into these, you won't get any additional troops. So it's not just the period of time that it's increasing, it's actually increasing the amount of volunteers as well. So we will want to go into this eventually, but for the time being, we want as much projects as possible. So as you can see, it's there's not really much that you're doing at the beginning. So one of the things that you do want to look out for is these exclamation marks on here, but because the things that we're going for are quite expensive, it's going to be quite a long time until I actually get the things that I want, which is this repeating rifles. As you can see, we're nowhere near close to unlocking the ship. Although this is something that I want. That's what we're going to be spending our politics on. And British artillery is going to take forever as well, so it's going to be a very long time until we get these projects unlocked. Okay, so now we've got 2 of these. We're almost at chapter 2, so I think what I might do is go into this military act 1, because it only takes 10 days. And then I think chapter 2 will open up before this 10 days is up, and then we're going to go into this military 2. That'll help us get our weapons up as soon as possible.
This step, secession, once taken, can never be recalled. We and our posterity shall see our lovely South desolated by the demon of war. Alexander Stephens, Vice President of the Confederate States of America. Chapter 2, The Demon of War. The election of Abraham Lincoln, an anti-slavery Republican, as the 16th President of the United States was the last straw, triggering secession. One by one, Southern slave states declared secession from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America, led by President Jefferson Davis. This secession ignited the inevitable escalation, with fruitless efforts to still find a political compromise falling on deaf ears. Advocates of armed insurrection and fire eaters roam the states with steel in their eyes, and the public is aroused to volunteer, to fill the ranks, to quell the rebellion, and to preserve the Union or to secure independence from it. Following open hostilities, President Lincoln's militia call for 75,000 volunteers for 3 months' service, sparks incredulous protest and loud outcry among the southern states. And these sparks set on fire the irreversible. More states secede. Now it's war. 75,000, 100,000, and even more. Soon, the largest armies seen on American soil muster, drill, and prepare for war. A war that is to be neat, short, and limited. The whole matter would be settled by Christmas. But a dark shadow would loom over the growing and inexperienced armies. Without a swift and decisive blow from the very offset of the war, there's every chance of a long, confused, and disorganizing civil war, and even foreign powers may feel a desire to take a hand therein. The time is ticking for the newborn Confederacy. The Union must act. The demon of war has awakened.
Right then. So this is the stage where I've got all of the armies to sort out. Oh, then again, because I haven't unlocked cavalry reform yet, there's not really much point in organising everything quite yet. So I think what I can do, because I'm going to be disbanding all of the infantry, is move all of the cannons into one division. So I'm going to move them all into this Florida State division. I want them as far away from the front line as possible so they don't get ambushed while I haven't got any cavalry support. So we're going to transfer everybody into the Florida State militia. Oops, that is the Florida State. There's actually some cavalry here as well, so I'll take them. Okay, so we're gonna disband all of the infantry. Okay, now we're just gonna have to hope that the enemy armies don't come all the way down here and attack this unit, but I think we should be okay. So we're just going to be fast forward. Sorry, we're just going to be fast forwarding again until we've got the weapons. It's going to be a long time until we've got all this. So there's going to be a lot of fast forwarding going on at the beginning. Still got 8 days until we can get the military up. Okay, so we need more military spending, and then once we've got this, we're going to go into diplomacy again so we can get the British cannons. So at the moment, all we're doing is waiting for this to go up so we can check mark that. And keeping an eye out down here for an exclamation mark, which will tell us that we've got agriculture and industry to spend on companies. One thing that I do want to do is disband all of these fleets. They're not big enough to actually do anything at the moment, so I don't want them all getting picked apart one by one. If I'm honest, I've never really done much in terms of river naval operations, because I don't really see what you're meant to do with them. Sending them down rivers, because they can't help out in battles, so the only thing they can do is blockade ports, which I suppose, if we have a look at the river, these rivers aren't going to reach any naval Union ports, sorry. So we'd have to go up this river up to about here, and then we might be able to blockade a few of these ports here, but I mean, it's something we could do, but I don't think it's entirely necessary. But I think that's probably what the best thing to do with the river ships would be. I'm going to save them for later on when I get a few ships of my own. Just going to try and consolidate the entire navy to try and take out the enemy navy. So it's not entirely necessary to go for these repeating rifles first, but they are, in my opinion, the best rifles in the game, so we may as well go for them immediately. Okay, so we're going to carry on down the diplomacy branch now, see if we can get our British cannons. Okay, so we've got an exclamation mark down here, so we can get brickworks and saltworks if we wanted, but I don't think that we need them. These little dots here tell you how important they are. So we've got no dots on either brickworks or saltworks, so I think what we really want is foundries or factories. So it'll be foundries for the industry and mills for this agriculture, which we are very close to getting. Don't know if, does it tell you? Not enough subsidies, so oh yeah, it'll tell you down here if you can afford it or not. So if you haven't got enough subsidies, you can still buy them. It just uses your own cash, the government's cash, which is, it costs a ridiculous amount more. Can't remember how much more, but there we go, we've unlocked one now. So if you leave it on auto placement, it'll just put it where it thinks the best place is. Now I don't know if, in fact let's take it off auto placement and see if it actually tells you. So Level sold goods, very expensive. Price level pre-goods, expensive. So it usually puts it up here. So let's have a look. Available capital. Oh, looks like we're still fast forwarding. So let's go back into this. So let's see why it puts us up here usually. For whatever reason, it's not showing us that. Can't quite, there we go. So available capital rich, so that's obviously got reduced cost, right, okay. Very expensive on the sold goods and expensive on the pre-goods. That's obviously why it puts us up there. So you can, if you want, try and search for a better place or a good place, but I've got a feeling it'd take a very long time to search everywhere for the best place. So we've got wealthy, very expensive, and expensive. This is actually a really good place down here. So yeah, let's just plop it there. The reason I didn't want it in the auto place area is because it's very close to the front line, so the enemy can very easily just take it. So it's not a very nice place to be building things on the front line. We've almost got our repeating rifles. Okay, so now we've got the repeating rifles. The next thing we need is cavalry reform. But before we do that, we're obviously going to want to build some of these rifles. So as you can see, 16 rate of fire, 16 shots a minute, which is why I think these are the best guns. So the Spencer repeating rifle is, in my opinion, the best gun. It hasn't got an incredibly long range, which is why it's pretty decent for the cavalry, because you can move cavalry into range a lot quicker than you can infantry. But still, at 16 rounds a minute, it's a really decent gun. But we're going to want all of these, the Spencer carbines, the Spencer repeating rifle, and the Henry rifle. Luckily you can actually use these on horseback. And the way it works, even though it tells you estimated delivery in 577 days, it's a trickle delivery. So you get some every few days. Don't know how many days it takes for each delivery, but every few days you'll get some delivered, so you don't have to wait the full amount to be able to get all of your guns. It just means that over 577 days you will have been delivered 50,000. So we're going to go for the max amount on all three of these. And then we're looking at British artillery and cavalry reform next. So in terms of your funding subsidy, I usually just save it and go for this improved credit rating. I don't think that the market reform's that important, but I don't actually know. I could be wrong on that. And you don't actually get banks until later on. I've never actually built a bank, so I always end up finishing the campaign before I have a chance to even build the bank, so I don't know how good they are. It's quite difficult to actually tell how good things are in this game, because it's all done in the background. And it's not exactly obvious what's going on. So it wouldn't be easy to tell how effective banks are, if I'm completely honest. We've almost got the cavalry reform now. Okay, now we've got the cavalry reform, we can either go into the artillery reform immediately or go into these medium range carbines. So I think what I'll do now is I'll skip ahead until I've actually built out all of these armies, because it's going to take an eternity and you definitely don't want to watch me do that. That's way too boring. So I shall see you in the future. Okay, so I've built out all of the cavalry divisions and put cavalry officers on all of them. But I've decided, rather than building out all of the cannon divisions, I'm just going to jump straight into horse artillery, sorry. So I'm just going to fast forward until we get to Cavalry Reform 2, and then I'm going to build out all of the cavalry artillery divisions. Right, before I do these cavalry reform, or before I set up the cavalry artillery divisions, I'm going to unlock this artillery reform, which will increase the size of the cav artillery. So there's no point in me designing all of the artillery divisions until I've actually got this artillery reform. It'll just mean that I have to do it twice if I do that. Right, we've actually got this British artillery now. So let's purchase all of these. So basically, all of these British cannons are good, but these Whitworths are the ones that are the best. So I think I'm just going to go into the Whitworths. I mean, I could go into these Armstrongs as well. They are also really good. So the other ones is the Blakely, which is good, but it's half of the shots per minute. So I don't think I'll bother with the Blakely, but these three are really, really good. But probably the best three cannons in the game apart from the Gatling guns. I don't really want to use the Gatling guns, they're a little bit overpowered. So if you ever do want to use the Gatling guns, basically they are in this Confederate guns. So yeah, if you want to use it, then by all means go for it, but they are a little bit too overpowered for my liking. Right, let's have a look, see if we can build the foundry yet, which we can. So I'm just going to let the auto placement plop it down for me. See where it puts it. That's not too close to the front line, so I'm happy with that. Right then, the next thing we're going to want, we do want this Mexico intervention, or Mexican intervention, but before we do that, I think let's go into these industry and agriculture, just so I can improve the finances. It improves the finances by meaning that we don't need to import so many goods. I think agriculture's mainly for European intervention, but it will give us the funding to get some mills and plantations and such. But we've got the artillery reform, so I think I'm just going to pause the game again, or pause the recording I should say, just while I organise the artillery divisions. Okay, so we've finally built out all of our divisions, or armies, corps. So we've put artillery officers on as many as we can, but there's quite a few that we haven't been able to actually get artillery officers on, but we've got them on quite a lot of them. And we've sorted out all of our division commanders, and obviously all of our army commanders. So we've got Lee, Zollicoffer and Beauregard as our army commanders, and we are ready to advance now. Now, it's going to be a short while until these armies actually get all of the men. We've got 20,000 on this one, though, 140 days for the rest. We've got 27,000 on this one, and 159 days for the rest. And 26,000 on this one, and 104 days. So we've actually got quite a lot of troops. But I think it's the cannon. It's going to be a long time until they join. So if you've seen any of my Ultimate General videos, you'll know that my main philosophy is go heavy on the cannons. So that's what we're going to be doing on here. So the cannons themselves aren't going to do that much damage. But if you have a cannon superiority, then it kind of forces the enemy to come towards you. Otherwise, you'll just pick them apart from a distance. So the philosophy will be heavy on the cannons to get them to come towards us, and then as they come towards us, we'll pounce on them with our cavalry divisions. So that is the plan. Right, so the next thing we're going to want, we're spending our diplomacy on warships, and we're going to be spending our military on medium range carbines. After the medium range carbines, I could go into cavalry carbines, but I don't think I'm going to need that many guns. I think the medium range should be enough. So we could go into rifled artillery if we want, but I think I'm probably going to be okay for the cannons. I don't know. I'll have a think. But then after that, I'm not really sure what I'm going to want to spend my military points on. I've never bought military railroad, so I kind of want to test that out. It just basically means that you move faster on railroads, I think. Yeah, there's nothing else that I really want to go for. So cavalry carbines, military railroads, and rifled artillery. One of them three. And then after that, I'm just gonna go into this training manuals, I reckon. Okay. So, let's see if we can see where some enemies are. Obviously, we haven't done any defending, but it looks like they've just sat there not even attacking. They've only got 13,000 on this Department of the West. Don't know what they've been playing at. They haven't even attacked over here. This is ridiculous. What are you playing at? Right, okay. I've got it on the hardest difficulty setting and on the most aggressive enemies, so why are they not doing anything? Interesting. Let's have a look, see how many men they've got. They've only got 27,000 men fielded. What on earth is going on? What is going on? So I might need to just advance time a little bit and wait until they build up an army, because at the moment this is just going to be pathetic. So maybe if I sit my army close to their cities, they might recruit more men, I don't know. It might be because I've been sitting back that they haven't. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think that'll do for this episode. And then off camera, I'll just advance time a little bit and wait until they build up an army. Because otherwise I'll just stroll into Washington and win the campaign, which is the main reason that I find this campaign not very challenging at all. Just because they don't seem to field the men. And even when they do field the men, you knock their national morale down really easily, because it's easy to just walk into Washington. But anyway, that'll do for this episode. So cheers for watching, take care, and I shall see you in the next one.